So rapper Nicki Minaj is being sued by a former tour employee. According to the employee, they're accusing Nicki Minaj of assault. Welcome back to the Kempire channel, your number one source for pop culture news and music, entertainment, reality TV, and so much more. As always, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on breaking news when we go live or when we upload. So last night we had the breaking news that Nicki Minaj was being sued yet again by a former employee. Well, according to Variety, they write this: Nicki Minaj has been sued for assault, battery, and, quote, intentional infliction of emotional distress by a man who alleges that the Grammy-nominated rapper struck him in the face during a confrontation. So in a complaint filed Friday in Los Angeles Superior Court, Brandon Garrett claims that he was working as a day-to-day manager for Minaj's Pink Friday 2 tour. So this is very recent, when Minaj, real name Onika Mirage, hit him multiple times. The altercation allegedly occurred backstage at the Little Caesars Arena in Detroit on April 21st, following one of Minaj's concerts. So in a statement shared with Variety, Minaj's attorney, Judd Burstein, widely denies these allegations and denounces an original report of the complaint from TMZ. The statement reads, it says, at this time, no complaint has been served upon Mrs. Petty, Minaj's husband, Kenneth Petty, and therefore we are unaware of specific allegations, Bernstein writes. However, if the lawsuit is as reported by TMZ, it is completely false and frivolous. We are confident that the matter brought by this ex-assistant will be resolved swiftly in Mrs. Petty's favor. So according to the lawsuit, Garrett, who claims to have been a manager for Nicki Minaj, he was on his way back from an errand Minaj requested when he received a text message from her head of security, Larry Dathan, also known as BZ. Dathan allegedly told Garrett that Minaj wanted to see him in her dressing room. When he arrived, Garrett says that 8 members of Minaj's staff were present, including Dathan, another employee named Luke Montgomery, and her former manager, Deb Anthony.
And, but it's all, the great thing is, it's all love. And we even just spoke to Fenty for a little bit on FaceTime. The great thing about it is that sometimes in life, things happen. But when you know better, you do better. You know what I'm saying? If you feel like you still love and appreciate somebody, show them, tell them. There's nothing wrong. It's nothing wrong. It doesn't take anything away from you to show appreciation and love if somebody was there for you at and these are both two people that I would be yelling at and screaming on and all that, because they would get on my fucking nerves all the motherfucking time.
She's gonna be a lunatic.
Okay.
She's gonna be a lunatic.
But at the end of the day, they believed in me early on, and I will always be appreciative of them for that. Yeah. And look at how life works. Here I am putting out my, Pink Friday 2, and ATL Jacob brings me the Club Up beat. And it already had Walker's voice on it. I think it's Southside and Walker's voice on it, ATL Jacob told me. And I ended up, having a song that I loved with Walker, who used to be my security guard, on my album. An album that means so much to me. And so I just, it's just, life is beautiful. Make the best of it. And say thank you when you love people and when they did something. And sometimes you don't get it right. You don't always get it right. You don't always, say the right things and do the right things. But when you think about it later on.
Garrett states that Minaj began to complain about the staff, quote, not knowing what they are supposed to do and who reports to who, when she turned her attention to Montgomery, asking what his position was. Mr. Montgomery explained that his duties entail tasks like venue dressing room setup, private jet setup, hotel room setup, quick change room refreshments, and tour bus setup. The complaint reads, Mr. Montgomery mentioned these duties were in addition to any requests from Minaj communicated by Garrett, including food orders, drinks, personal items, baby items, and most notably, prescriptions. Garrett explained that he had Montgomery pick up the prescriptions because he was occupied with tour responsibilities, including assisting Minaj with quick changes during performances. Defendant Garrett claims that Nicki Minaj then became, quote, visibly upset and, quote, angrily screamed at him. Sidebar. Based off of things and clips that went viral during the Pink Friday 2 tour, we did see Nicki Minaj on stage, or at least behind the scenes, screaming at, I believe it was like one of her glam squad. So I'm just sort of like, could this be true? But at the end of the day, people can file a lawsuit no matter what. He says Minaj said things like, "Are you effing crazy having him pick up my prescription? And if my husband was here, he would knock your effing teeth out." Sidebar, Nicki Minaj's husband has been sued in recent years, maybe in recent months, for getting into physical altercations with people. She says, "And if my husband was here, he would knock out your effing teeth." She allegedly continued with threats saying, "You just effed up your whole life and you will never be anyone. I'll make sure of it." Minaj then allegedly, quoted, started yelling at Montgomery, asking what day he picked up the prescriptions and what exact prescriptions they were. When Montgomery said that he couldn't recall, she told him to look through his phone until he found it. Garrett claims that neither he nor Montgomery could find the information Minaj was asking to see. After Montgomery allegedly offered up his cell phone to Minaj to read the messages between he and Garrett, the complaint states she approached him and got, quote, very close to his face while continuing to yell at him. This is a quote. At this point, Minaj open-handedly struck Garrett on the right side of his face, causing his head to swing backwards as his hat flew off his head, per the complaint. Garrett also alleges that Minaj hit him on his right wrist, leaving it in a throbbing condition. After Minaj demanded Garrett leave the room, Garrett says that he locked himself in a nearby restroom for multiple hours. Garrett says that he received notice from Deb Antony, that he would not be joining the group on the bus to Minaj's next tour stop in Chicago. Garrett claims that he took an Uber to Detroit Airport and called the Detroit Police Department to inquire about filing a police report. Did he file a police report? However, the Detroit Police Department officers allegedly informed him that he would need to appear in person at a precinct office to make a formal report. By this point, Garrett says that he had already booked a flight back to Chicago, where he contacted the Chicago Police Department for a police escort to his hotel because he feared for his safety and he did not know if his belongings had been removed or tampered with. This is where it gets a little fishy, but I will say this, and this is across the board when we talk about victims of assaults and things like that, you're not necessarily in your rational mind. And I say that because I know some people will probably look at this because he's a man, like, oh, why didn't he go to the police department? We have to keep this in mind and keep this across the board when we talk about victims of abuse, of alleged abuse, I should say. You're not necessarily thinking your right mind, and you're also thinking, will the police believe me that Nicki Minaj did this to me? But on the other hand, if I'm going to twerk on a fence in regards to this, you were smart enough to call the police department about filing a police report. They informed you what that procedure would be, but you decided still to get on a flight and leave instead of documenting it with the Detroit Police Department in the moment. So they say Garrett claims that he took an Uber to the Detroit airport and called the Detroit Police Department to inquire about filing a police report. However, the Detroit Police Department officers allegedly informed him that he would need to appear in person at a precinct office to make a formal report. By this point, Garrett says that he had already booked a flight back to Chicago, where he contacted the Chicago Police Department for a police escort to his hotel because he feared for his safety and did not know if his belongings had been removed or tampered with. Garrett eventually filed an official report in Detroit. He is asking for punitive and exemplary damages and general damages. As I said before, anyone can file a lawsuit. However, there does seem to be a pattern of abuse in these lawsuits that are being filed against Nicki Minaj and her husband, Kenneth Petty. Based off of what we're reporting now, it doesn't look like Kenneth Petty was even there, so he's not being sued in this lawsuit, but Nicki Minaj is. And although we've seen Nicki Minaj have these theatrics, which feels like theatrics, it's not to take away from the possibility that those theatrics might not be far from who she really is, as opposed to just playing a character. Guys, we're going to continue to follow this lawsuit, but I want to know your reaction to the news that Nicki Minaj, at the top of 2025, is being sued by a former employee that was a part of her Pink Friday 2, successful Pink Friday 2 tour. As always, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on breaking news when we go live or when we upload. Thanks for watching.
You bring the lighter.